Everyone. My name is Mel Horan, and I'm the Vice President of Sales for the Northbridge Companies. At Northbridge, we offer independent living, assisted living, and memory care throughout Maine, New Hampshire, and Mass, and two of our newest communities in Farmington and Simsbury, Connecticut. I not only work for Northbridge, but I am also a family member, as my uncle, whom I love dearly, lives at one of our communities. I was his primary caregiver when he was living at home, working a full-time job, so I can totally appreciate the juggle is real. Tonight, I'm excited to welcome back Liz O'Donnell. She is the founder of Working Daughter for an important conversation about caregiving during the holiday season. Liz's personal journey has inspired the powerful mission behind Working Daughter, a community created to support caregivers who often feel overwhelmed, unprepared, and alone as they juggle careers, families, and the demands of caregiving. We will have an opportunity for you to write questions into the chat, and we will hold a period of time at the end for those questions and answers. We hope tonight's presentation about juggling the demands of caregiving this holiday season provides you with helpful tips, practical strategies, and the reassurance that you are not navigating the season alone. Thank you, Liz, and welcome back.
Thank you, Mel. I appreciate you having me back. And hello, everybody. As Mel mentioned, I'm Liz O'Donnell from Working Daughter. We are a community of people who are juggling care with everything else in their lives. And tonight we are going to talk about the holidays, which can be a stressful time for anybody, but an incredibly stressful time for caregivers. And so what I want to do tonight is talk about that layer of complexity and help us all create a version of the holidays that actually works for us. And so I mentioned Working Daughter already, but yes, we are a community for women and men who are balancing caregiving with their careers, with raising kids, the whole bit. We do have a community on Facebook that you are more than welcome to join. It's a private Facebook community called Working Daughter. I just got suspended out of my account. I don't know why. So if you do ask to join, be patient. It might take me 72 hours to get back in there and accept you into the community, but you will be welcome. We're launching an app early next year. So that will fix the Facebook problems. And we also have a website, workingdaughter.com, with lots of great articles and a book. And my email is liz@workingdaughter.com if you ever have any questions.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Two of the things that I want to do tonight, two objectives for this evening, is talk about how you can create a holiday that works for you. How you can celebrate the holidays, whatever holidays you might celebrate, without losing your mind, because I'm sure there'll be times that you will feel like that is going to happen. It has certainly happened to me where I thought, this is crazy. Let's just give up on the holidays altogether. It's too hard. Excuse me. But my main goal is that you walk away tonight with permission to make the holidays what you need to make them. Holidays can be so steeped in pressure and imagery that is just, absurd. I love the movie The Holiday. I don't know anyone who doesn't, but we're just not all looking that good, all dolled up in white cashmere cable knit and falling in love with some stranger in the cutest, charming English cottage. And I grew up with the Sears and Roebuck Wish Book. I don't know if any of you remember that huge catalog that used to come when you were a kid, and or the Jordan Marsh. I'm from Boston. So we had Jordan Marsh, the Jordan Marsh Christmas catalog that would come, that always had a family in red taffeta and plaid standing around a piano, in a beautiful home. And we didn't have a piano. Nobody sang. I'd be like, let's sing Christmas carols. Everyone's like, shut up, youngest sister. Nobody wants to do that. But these images stick in our head. And if the holidays aren't like that, and they're not for anybody, never mind caregivers, there's part of us that I just think feels like we're not doing a good enough job. Then there's Elf on the Shelf and all the other things that they throw at us. But so tonight, I really want you to walk away with permission to make the holidays anything you need them to be and anything you want them to be. So, and then we'll take some questions, as Mel mentioned at the end. So let me get into it. I think the reason holidays feel so stressful for caregivers really can be categorized into three categories: expectations, family, and grief. I mean, so many of us, I would say that can find being around family challenging on a good day. And oftentimes we create our own chosen families, right? Our friends, the people we choose to partner with, and we create families that work for us. And then we have our families of origin, and we may love them, but we might not always like them, or there might be some, history and drama. And so what do? We say the holidays have to be wonderful, and we have to spend it with these people that we don't always feel wonderful around. I mean, come on, the recipe is just a little absurd. So you throw family into the mix for holidays. And then there's grief. Grief just is a regular visitor at the holidays, whether you want it to be or not. Grief loves the holidays. It might, you might not have been experiencing grief for months, but oh, it's the holidays. It's going to be knocking on your door. So let's break down why those three categories are really where we create, where we feel this pressure around the holidays. There's I have to remember a Chinese proverb, right? That expectation is the mother of all frustration. I think there are no truer words. And I touched on this a second ago around the images that we grew up with in our heads, whether it was the Jordan Marsh catalog or I'm a sucker for Hallmark Channel I watch every single Hallmark movie, even though I can tell you how it's going to end before it even starts. And I end up just sad, like, why don't I go outside and snow gently falls and, there's a man in a lumberjack suit just to like take away all my misery and pain and change my life. I mean, but I just keep watching them. I just keep watching them. So we have these expectations of how the holidays are supposed to be. Oftentimes we have other people's expectations of how the holidays are supposed to be. And as we go through caregiving, as the people we care for, as their needs change, as their cognitive abilities change, we just, even if we're going for just, an okay, not a Hallmark holiday, sometimes we can't even achieve that. But the expectation is that we are supposed to. And so when we have that expectation, we often end up frustrated and disappointed. I remember a Thanksgiving after my mom passed away. And so my family didn't really have a plan because we'd always, it always centered around my parents. And my dad at that point had dementia, was living in a senior community. And some cousins invited me to their Thanksgiving, which was lovely because we just didn't really have our own plan. So to be invited to extended family was a really nice gesture. But the expectation was that my father, who was the patriarch of the family, the oldest brother, would stand up with a glass of wine and make a toast. I mean, he had dementia, and not only did he have dementia, but he was a very quiet guy. And all of a sudden, he was put on the spot in front of this big extended family in this beautiful home with crystal and white linen. And he knocked the red wine all over the tablecloth, and he felt bad and was put on the spot. And there was this expectation that Uncle Joe would be something that Uncle Joe just wasn't anymore. And I just realized, we had both sort of been set up to fail that Thanksgiving. And so if I had had permission to just given myself permission just to rewrite the holiday, you know what I probably would have done? I probably would have spent Thanksgiving in the dining hall at his senior living. I think that would have been a much more wonderful holiday. And there might be a picture in here later. I learned that lesson and did spend some holidays there. So what do we do about these expectations? There's a framework that I talk about: revisit them, revisit your traditions. I mean, one of the wonderful things about the holidays, right, is that they're steeped in tradition. But let me give you some permission around tradition. Every tradition started anew at some point, and yet we feel this pressure around family traditions that they can't change. Well, they have been changing and evolving all along. If you actually thought about it, somebody started a tradition at some point, and you have permission to revisit that, to reframe it, and to come up with a tradition that works for you. I have two older sisters who love tradition. I mean, one of them just doesn't want, and I bought the house that we grew up in. So my whole house comes with the family Christmas party, which means I host about 50 extended family members every Christmas. And this year will be Christmas 98 of throwing this party. So I know tradition. And we have had the same menu, the same flow of activities, the same Yankee swap, the same guest list year after year. And so it sort of looks like we're so steeped in tradition that nothing changes, but a lot has actually changed over the years. Um, the menu changes slightly, the time of day changes, the Yankee swap has changed, and we've changed it in really subtle ways for the different caregivers in the family. Changing the time that it starts because somebody has to drive an uncle, an hour and a half and get him back before he sundowns. And we don't all sit in the same room anymore because the acoustics don't work for those who are hard of hearing. I put rugs in rooms that didn't have rugs to make the sound easier. I mean, they're just things that seem small that change. I definitely have people like my sisters who walk around and say, that's not how we did it. That's not where that ornament hung. Well, it's okay. I've given myself permission to revisit our traditions. And then and not really care what anybody else thinks, but to make it work for multi-generations and make it work for both the caregiver and the caree. I pull up all my my carpets, I get my house all pretty for Christmas. And then I pull up all the carpets because I don't want any trip hazards for my uncle on his walker. And then, my floors that haven't been refinished in years are exposed, but who cares? I'm reframing, and that's the next thing. I'm reframing the holiday that it doesn't have to be about perfection. For me, the holiday just has to be about opening my door to my family. Sometimes the house isn't clean. Sometimes it doesn't look perfect. Sometimes I'm not ready. Sometimes I don't have enough food. Sometimes I have too much food. But I've really reframed what the holidays mean for me. And for me, they mean I open my door as the person who's owned this home has, my great grandmother before me and my mother for 98 years. And people come in and it's about being together and it is highly imperfect. And so that's how I reframe these traditions. And I give you permission to think about what are the limitations now in your celebrations, whether they're your limitations as a caregiver, you're tired, you want to be home early, you don't want to exchange gifts, whatever it might be, or the limitations of the person that you're caring for. They're incontinent, they can't, they're hard of hearing, they sundown, whatever it might be. We really have to, and I don't like to say have to because I don't believe in shoulds as a caregiver, but in order to make a holiday less stressful, losing those expectations, reframing what a holiday means, and really questioning for yourself, what is the most important thing for you about the holidays? If it's gift giving, give gifts. If it's being with family, be with family. If it's volunteering, then volunteer, but maybe not all of those things work, but really defining what the holiday means for you. And then once you decide, make it work, revel in it. A nighttime party might become a daytime party. A party that always happened at a certain address might happen in the living room of the senior living community. Mel, I don't want to speak for you, but I believe most people who run these senior living facilities love to see that kind of activity.
Absolutely, we
Yeah,
love it.
yeah.
Absolutely, we love it. And
And
people
just at
really have
home.
found it as their a new option. And I
Yep.
did want to say, Liz, when you brought up gift giving, because I think sometimes when you say, gosh, I'm not going to do that this year, people think that you don't want to spend the money. It's got nothing to do with the money. It's taking something off your plate and giving yourself permission to just relax and enjoy the people. And I think that sometimes is a stigma we have to get away from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were years when I didn't do any gifts. I mean, aside from, pretending to be Santa for my kids, because I was caring for two aging parents and I had two young kids. I stopped exchanging gifts with anybody else. I just did Santa gifts. And then there were years when I had different circumstances and I loved giving gifts. There were years when I didn't do gifts or cards, right? And now sometimes I do cards because I really crave the connection. And that's how I sort of reframe my holiday. But anything is negotiable on the table when it comes to holidays. It really comes down to whether or not you can give yourself that permission to change it. And You often hear people talk about defining a word for what's your word for the year? What's your intention for the day? This idea of sort of setting an intention of reframing and revisiting what the holidays really mean to you. If it's about joy, then figure out what brings you joy. And if it's about family, then be with family and let the rest go. And um, once you choose that, really just putting your earmuffs on to what anybody else has to say about it, because anything else is just a setup for stress, and caregivers have enough stress, so not necessary. Um, oh, you know what? I ran these slides through ChatGPT and they added this quote, but this is a total surprise to me. But Alexander Pope apparently said, "Blessed is he who expects nothing, for you shall never be disappointed." And note to yourself, don't experiment with ChatGPT an hour before you give a presentation, because when I went through these this morning, that wasn't there. But it's an interesting quote. Blessed is he who expects nothing, for he shall never be disappointed. I love it. That is funny. The revisiting, I talked about this. One of the things too is thinking about whose holiday is it. Oftentimes as caregivers, we create holidays, and women especially, right? Our job is to create the magic. And it's one of those invisible, unpaid tasks that nobody really understands, but that women work really hard to create holiday magic. And I think it's great that that we recognize that in ourselves, that it is hard work. I will be up and down the attic stairs with 5 huge bins, setting up for my holiday party, and I will be up and down the basement stairs by myself, bringing up tables and folding chairs. I choose to do that now that I'm older and my kids are adults, but it is hard work. It is a lot of work. It's probably, 2 full weekends of decorating. And I can do that right now because I'm not actively caring for anyone. When I was caring for people, it was not something that I wanted to do. And, so whose holiday is it? It can be your holiday. It can be you taking a holiday break from the person you care for. Any of this is possible. And a tradition is anything that you start that has meaning for you. So really, I urge you to revisit what you're doing around the holidays and giving yourself permission to make it a holiday for you too. And maybe the actual holidays, maybe Thanksgiving next Thursday, when family has an expectation of getting together, isn't the day for you. And maybe you go through the motions and you make it work for other people. But then I urge you to find a day that's about you and what you're thankful for, and being grateful, and making a holiday just for you. One of the things I always tell working daughters is these holidays are just a date on the calendar. You can move that date. If that's what you need to do, move the date. If everyone's going to be home in the summer, if it's too icy where you live to take your mom, who's unstable on her feet, out in the winter, pick another date. Make a holiday any time you want. It's really important that you make it work for you. And then I mentioned thinking through the limitations. So as you revisit the holidays, you think through, if you're caring for someone with dementia, then think about stimulation, think about travel. Does that put them off schedule? Think about timing. Don't be afraid to say, we need to start this, at a different time. One of my cousins, her kids are now young adults, and she has a beautiful new home and she loves to host. And she was so thrilled to have she never understood why we have turkey and this huge meal at noon. And she wants to sit inside and sip her coffee in the morning and revel in her beautiful home, and then have us all over for dinner at 4. Fine with me. But another cousin who's a caregiver to her uncle said, I can't have Uncle Eddie at dinner at 4. He starts to sundown at 5 and he has a ride home. So we're moving it back to noon. And, it's everybody's choice to do that, but we had to think through what are some of the limitations around some of the guests. And sometimes people are willing to make those changes and sometimes they're not. And then time and money are also, huge factors for caregivers. The average family caregiver has about 25.5 hours of hours worth of tasks to do every day. I think we all know that there are only 24 hours in a day. So the fact that you feel stretched for time is very real. Add all the holidays, activities, and I don't know, we're probably up to like 28.8. I haven't done that math. I did do the 25.5 math. So something has to give. And we know that the average family caregiver spends about $7,000 a year on average out of pocket, just on these hidden costs in caregiving. So if caregiving is a time or a money burden for you, then it is okay to revisit what it looks like, because there's actually nothing joyful about feeling stressed that you're, racking up the credit card debt or losing sleep. It's kind of counterintuitive to the whole thing.
Mhm.
We talked about this already, reframing it. And so one of the ways to think about that is, okay, what's my priority? What are the limitations that I have to deal with? What do I want this holiday to really mean to me? And then I can figure out how I celebrate it, when I celebrate it, and where I celebrate it, versus the reverse, which is how, we've, I think, been conditioned, is the holiday is on this date and this is what you do. And then we twist ourselves into pretzels to try to make it work. But I think if we take it in this order instead, what are my priorities? What are the limitations I'm facing? What does it really mean to me? Okay, then how do I celebrate it? Is a much healthier way to approach it for caregivers.
Mhm.
Oh, and this, yeah, I did have a picture. This is my dad at his senior living community. After that Thanksgiving, when I realized it just didn't make any sense anymore to bring him to big family gatherings, we started to celebrate the holidays at his senior living community. You know what? My kids loved it. My husband loved it. He didn't have to cook. It was easier. My kids loved it because they might run into the Easter Bunny, on any given day. And their Papa, who I love so much, was just relaxed and happy to show them his friends, versus Papa coming into a setting at that point where he wasn't comfortable. And he, his anxiety and his nerve, you could see it. And he wasn't connecting with my children as well as he could when he was in his own environment. So it was really not any kind of, holiday we had ever planned, but became a much stronger and better holiday schedule for us to spend it with him in his place. And that was his home too. So we were spending it in a home. Okay, so then there's family, right? We love them. We can't live without them. We can't live with them sometimes, right? Families can be challenging. I always say there's a chapter in the Working Daughter book where I say be prepared to dust off the dysfunction when you become an adult caregiver, because you start to deal with all of your family layers and issues. And so I think there's really, several ways to approach this. Avoid them if they're not the people that bring you joy and happiness. If they don't tie into the theme, then don't spend it with them. You have permission to create a holiday that brings you joy. Assign them. Family caregivers are so busy, right? The 25.5 hours a day. Feel free to say, this is potluck this time. I have a friend who's just horrified that her oldest sister, who bought the family house, who's been hosting the Thanksgiving for the last few years since she bought the big family house that they all grew up in, and was hosting the same tradition that all of these adult kids grew up with, decided this year, because she's become the primary caregiver for their mother, who's been in and out of the hospital all year, that there will be appetizers and wine at Thanksgiving. And if anybody wants anything else, they can bring it. But she is, and as a fellow working daughter, I'm like, you go, you go. She is opening the home. She cannot wait to relax and be with everybody, but she is going to relax. And she said, this is what I'm serving. There will be bottles of wine, there will be appetizers, and anything anybody else wants. Bring a turkey, don't bring a turkey, bring a pie, don't bring a pie. But this is how I am celebrating the holiday, because I have been really busy with mom. And then we adapt, right? Then we adapt to the new tradition. And the other thing about a tradition is, it just, when we change a holiday, it doesn't mean we've necessarily changed it forever. You can always go back to other celebrations, even if you put them on pause for a year. It doesn't mean they're over. It just means they're different. Um,
I
so
think that's a really important point, Liz. That's happening to me this year, and I know it probably could be the only year I have this type of holiday season. But I think knowing that, it could go back, or maybe I've just created something new. So I
yeah,
think that's another really great point.
yep, yep. I I think Mel knows this. I lost my husband a few years ago after losing both of my parents. And there was a we always went to my parents' house for Thanksgiving. You know, always from the time we were dating, through having kids. And after my parents passed away, some of my family reached out and invited us over. This was before the Thanksgiving with my dad. Oh no, it was after the Thanksgiving with my dad. So a large extended family were always invited. And one year my husband just put his foot down and he's like, absolutely. And I was horrified. I love to spend time with my extended family. It's like, we're staying in our pajamas. I'll make a beautiful dinner, but nothing. We are, and I was like, this is awful. I can't believe that he's, cutting me off from my family. But I had to say yes because he was right. Ever since he started dating me, we always did what I wanted with my family for the holidays. And we stayed in and he was a great cook. He made a wonderful dinner and we wore our pajamas and we watched movies. And the next year he, got sick and passed away. And I am so grateful for that random holiday that we had because it was such a fun memory. And you know what? It didn't last forever. We're back to, going to visit the relatives. And obviously those plans changed for, unfortunate reasons. But my point is, sometimes you can change up the holidays. It doesn't mean you've changed them up forever. And sometimes you find real magic in changing up the holidays. So don't be afraid if it doesn't look like it did last year. It doesn't mean it has to be forever, and it might mean you find something wonderful in it. So when it comes to family, I would say, appraise them of the limitations. Mom just can't be in crowds right now. Now, you might have a sibling who's like, oh, you're overreacting, you're so bossy, whatever. If you're the primary caregiver, you know the limitations of the person you care for, and don't be afraid to advocate for them and ask for understanding, and you'll either get it or you won't. And if you don't, probably don't want to spend the holidays with them anyway. And as much as you can, ask for help. I remember there was one year I was hosting Christmas. My parents drove up to stay overnight, and my mom fell on the stairs before she even came in the house, and she broke her hip. And I think this was on Christmas Eve. And back then, my husband and I both worked, our kids were little. So Christmas Eve for us was usually like running around like maniacs, doing all the house cleaning and throwing stuff, under beds and in closets and getting everything ready. But my mom fell on Christmas Eve and was in the hospital. And so Christmas morning, we took the kids into the hospital, to cheer her up and to see her on Christmas morning and open some gifts. And when my cousins showed up for the big family party, nothing was swept, the dishes were still dirty, never mind and I walked in and the family was just rummaging through my house and getting everything ready. And they saw how I really lived, and we still had a wonderful Christmas. So don't be afraid to ask for help. And then there's grief, right? Grief, just like I said, it loves a holiday, it likes to show up. So I would say when it comes to grief, and if it's going to visit you on the holidays, get as much rest as you can as a caregiver. I know getting rest as a caregiver can be really difficult. Whoops, wrong slide. But grief is physically exhausting. And I don't know that we learn that. So I'm here to remind you, it is a physically exhausting. So if you're feeling really tired and overwhelmed, that could be why. And so as much rest as you can get. And for those of you who've experienced grief, there's nothing you can do with it. You have to surrender to it. So if you rest and ride it out, I think it can really help you through the holidays. And then rewrite, right? Rewrite what the holiday is going to mean for you. Think about what you want it to be this year. Write down your memories. Think about what you want things to be moving forward. Accept that it's going to feel different. Give yourself to pause, like Mel and I were just saying, give yourself permission to take a pause year or take a break, change traditions. Again, doesn't mean it has to be forever. And I know it sounds cheesy and it's said a lot, but really practicing gratitude, I find, is a wonderful way to balance grief and loss. I truly believe, and we talk about this in the working daughter community all the time, that working daughters understand that we can hold two opposing truths at the same time. Like that caregiving sucks and I can't take it one more day. And I love my parents so much, I never want it to end. We can also, I think we, as working caregivers, we're really exposed to this skill set. We can say, I am sad and I miss, and I am so grateful for what's in front of me at the same time. So Gratitude, self-care. I know it's a cliche, but especially now is so important, and rest.
And self-care doesn't need to be, it's nice to be a massage or a facial, but it simply could be sitting with a cup of tea, writing in a journal. It could be, just going for a walk on the beach. It could be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, it could be, going to a yoga class. Self-care has a lot of definitions.
Yeah.
And most working women, like all of us, we're the last of it. We don't remember us. We don't remember what we're supposed to be doing. So you've got to.
Yeah, yeah, and it varies for everybody, right? It could be watching Hallmark movies all day long. It could be going to the mall and being in the crowds and shopping because you need to get out of your own home. Um, it could be having a friend come over and be with you because you can't get out of your house because you're a caregiver. Any of those things. Yeah, any of those things. So I would, to recap, I would say to make the holidays work for caregiving, it's more about mindset and permission than it is about anything else. So what do you really want the holidays to be about for you? What's going to be something different for all of us? Pick one priority that's so, that's important for you. Like this year, it's going to be about laughter. Damn it, that's what it's going to be about. And I'm going to watch, what's that movie where the kid's tongue gets stuck to the pole?
Oh gosh,
Yeah, Christmas Story. Is that
A
it?
Christmas Story.
Yeah. Or this year, it's going to be all about like light, and I'm going to go see all the lights or whatever it might be. And it can be that simple, but what's the one thing that's going to anchor you this holiday? And then, really focus on that. Um, but really think about as a caregiver, what are the limitations that you need to work around and do your best to accept them. I know for years I was like, this stinks. My mother can't go here. And, but, and there was, my holidays were all about resistance. And then it was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to the senior living facility. I'm going to adapt to those limitations, or I'm going to accept that we're going to stay in our pajamas this year, whatever it might be. But don't be afraid to move the holiday, change the holiday, or even skip the damn holiday if that's what you feel that you need to do this year. It will come back. It will come back. And then block out opinions. This is so important because everyone has an opinion of what we should be doing and what our parents are capable of, even though we're the primary caregivers and we have the best understanding. So again, simplify and permission are my main things. And from there, Mel, I don't know if you have anything to add or we want to take questions.
Yeah, I think just a couple of things. One of the thing, my uncle is now in a senior living community. I mentioned that earlier, and I don't remember the last time that this man had a Christmas stocking. So I am staying right next door to the senior living community that he is at Christmas Eve, and we're gonna go out for an early dinner. But I'm bringing him a Christmas stocking, and I have to tell you, I'm so excited. The simplicity of that. Um, and, I think the joy that it's going to bring to him. Um, and honestly, it's giving me such joy. I ordered the stocking. I ordered it at the same time I got my new grandchild a stocking, and I was like, this is going to light up his life. And, again, it's bringing me as much joy. And I hate to shop, so I'm doing most of it online for his stocking. And some of it isn't even things that I have to go out and buy. They're just things that are going to help him remember how much his family loves him. So that in and of itself could be terrific. Liz, you are always so amazing. We are going to take some questions. I also just want to say that one of my colleagues, Kelly McCarthy, um, it has written a booklet, Dementia and the Holidays, a guide to successful celebrations, tips for holiday visits, gift giving, and meaningful conversations. And you can, we're going to send that to the group that has RSVP'd for this via PDF. So we are going to send that to you as well. So we're ready to take on some questions. Liz, I'm sure is happy to do that. So I know I've got a behind the scenes person that might be letting Liz know what you all would like to ask her.
Yep. Thanks, Mel. So yes, we're going to share the recording of this presentation. So if you want to go back and watch again or just kind of go back to some parts, we'll share a recording of this presentation along with the digital copy of the booklet that Mel mentioned with all of you. So, yeah, one question that we have, and I know, Liz, you talked about this a little bit, but when it comes to, talking with your family, um, how can caregivers communicate their needs effectively, you know, um, with their siblings and extended family? Do you have any tips on, sayings or phrases that they can use so it doesn't create a more hostile environment when they're talking with siblings and family?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say not so much a phrase, but timing. We all know what goes into a holiday, and everything I just talked about as far as managing our own expectations and pressures. Just think about all the other people that you might celebrate the holiday with are coming with all the same, I don't know if baggage is the right word, but like years of expectations around what a holiday is going to look like. So I think if you are thinking about limitations or maybe changing things up, think about the other people who are bringing all of their expectations and who might not be ready to shift. So as much notice, I think, as we can give people, like the Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, isn't the right day necessarily to say, I want to change the time, or we can only eat pureed food, or I don't know, whatever it might be, or we're not going to come. I mean, I would say just as much sensitivity to the fact that we all carry these expectations and try to plan it out as well as possible. I would say, if you are the primary caregiver and you're recommending or you're changing things up for the benefit of the person that you care for due to their limitations or that sort of thing. Recognizing that, especially siblings, we're not all on the same page about our parents. We all have our own level of ability to see the changes in our parents. It's why siblings sometimes can't get on the same page. One of us is like, mom is really limited and she just, doesn't do well in a crowd. And another sibling has a totally different point of view. It's not so much that they're wrong, it's that they're not ready to accept it yet. And so sometimes accepting, somebody's limitations is about like, I'm not ready to recognize that my mom isn't that, fountain, that sort of rock of support for me. So if Liz says to Mel, like, mom just isn't up for it anymore, and Mel's just not ready to have that experience of her mother, Mel's going to say, you're an idiot, Liz. You're well, because we're sisters in the scenario and we would talk like that, right? I disagree. And I think it's about finding the balance between knowing what you know about the person you care for and understanding that those around you might not be ready to be there yet or willing to see that. And so in any communication related to caregiving, I always say to working daughters, trying to find a balance between courage and compassion. So the courage to both advocate for the person you're caring for and their limitations, and the compassion to understand that others might be disappointed or sad about what you're recommending. The courage to advocate for what you need as a care, look, mom lives with me and I love that you all want to get together, but you take her for the day and I'm going to stay home. What? That's crazy. We're all supposed to be together. Well, I'm with her every day and I need some time just to sit by my fireplace or TV and watch the holiday or whatever it might be. So the courage to ask for that, but then the compassion to understand that not everybody is going to be okay with that decision. And so again, not necessarily phrases, but where the compassion comes in, I think, is the ability to let the other person have their reaction. It might not be favorable to what you're doing and not necessarily engaging in that reaction. Just, okay, they have that reaction and I'm not wavering, but I'm not fighting with them about it. This is something my older sister has such an ability to do, and it makes me crazy. I might say something a little controversial in my mind, and she just is okay. Well, where's the fight? Where's where's the fun in that? Where's the response? Because she's just trained herself over the years. She's not looking for drama. She's just okay. And she doesn't have to express her point of view around that. And I think she's a real, makes me crazy sometimes when I'm itching for a fight, but she's a real model in She hears me, and then she doesn't engage with it. Often leaves you wondering, well, what's she thinking? Is she judging me? But she just has the compassion to say, okay, that's your point of view, and I'll take it. And she has the courage to then make the shift. So no particular phrases, just timing and understanding that what you're communicating may or may not be received well, and that's okay. Just to quote Mel Robbins, let them.
Right. And sometimes we overthink too much too. I mean, especially if you're the caregiver going through the stress level, you kind of overthink things too much.
We have another question. Can you talk a little bit about, tips for juggling work, celebrations with friends and family, and just the reality of the craziness all happening at once and balancing career, family, all of that stuff during the holidays?
Yeah, it can be so much, right? And I mean, some of these tips are sort of, women's magazine obvious, but they really work, right? The being really careful about overindulging. Oftentimes we can't not go to the company holiday party. I know when I was in the midst of caring for my aging parents, one of the things that used to just set me over the edge was the holiday party for work, because I had so much to do as a caregiver between with my own family. And then you kind of can't not make an appearance. So, okay, let me get an outfit and go out another night and buy the Yankee swap gift. Um, I would say it didn't feel right or fair during those years to prioritize, those gifts and those celebrations over my own family. But politically, I had to show up at work. So I would say each one of us has to sort of figure out what we can and cannot beg out of around the holidays. And if these scenarios matter to your workplace, then I would say, try to do them with as much grace. And, my car, and my boss at the time when my parents were sick, like that Yankee swap was non-negotiable. And, the last gift I wanted to be buying for, shopping for, budgeting. But it just wasn't a good political fight, especially at a time when I was feeling fragile at work anyway. But so you do go to the party. And again, like I said, it's sort of basic advice, but you don't have to stay late, you don't have to drink everything, you don't have to eat everything. You really need to protect your energy. And so you show up, you do your bit, but beyond that, you're not really obligated to anybody else. This is where I'm a big advocate of the holidays don't have to happen during the holidays. So many of us with caregiving, it's also, end of year at work. Many people have jobs where budgets need to be done and rectified, and planning has to be done. And so it's just okay to sort of shift the major celebrations, the major family time, and really settle into what you've decided is the true feeling of the holiday for you. And then have the big family celebration or get together some other time, like February, when nothing's going on and everybody needs a little joy in their life. So, and then if you are in a better place at work, if you do have a more compassionate, boss or HR department, many companies are moving their holiday celebrations away from December for the reasons that I said, that there's so much going on. So if you are in a position, and we all have to judge where we are, work wise, then I think it's a wonderful thing if you're in a caregiver, employee resource group or support group at work, then you can advocate together for it. Let's not make the holidays any more busy than they are. Can we do Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever, Thanksgiving? Can we have that potluck in March? But hey, company, can you not add that for us? And then, really, again, holidays are often a time where we just sort of run ourselves down because there's always a tray of something or a glass of something, and we feel like we deserve it, but what we really deserve is to not be over sugared up and to get a good night's sleep. So very mature, and it's not fair or fun, but it really does pay off.
Very true.
Well, I think those are all the questions that we have. I don't know, Mel or Liz, do you have anything else you wanted to add before we finish up?
I mean, for me, the takeaway of the night is permission. We really have to give ourselves permission. we're caregivers, we're grown-ups, we're doing really important work. So, if we can be held responsible, if you will, to care for somebody else in their vulnerable moments, then damn it, we're adult enough to say, this is what I need, and give ourselves permission to do that.
I think so too, Liz. And, you always come up with some of the, most profound, just little phrases, protect your energy. I think we can all learn from that. And I think it's, listen to your body as well and listen to what you need, because we really can't be a great caregiver if we're not feeling it ourselves.
Mhm.
And I think some of us have learned that the hard way. But you've got to give yourself permission to, cry and to, tend to yourself. And sometimes a cry is a really good thing.
Mhm.
Sometimes you feel great after, you're like, okay, I just needed to do that. Now I'm going forward, right? So, and don't be afraid to switch things up a little bit, because as Liz said, you can go back to tradition, or you can go back to the original tradition, or you can start anew, and whatever works for you.
Mhm.
I think that the other key is there's no right or wrong answer. You have to do what's right for the person you're caring for. But there's a reason why on the planes they say put the oxygen mask on you first. Um,
Mhm.
if you've got small children or people you're caring for. So you've got to put your oxygen on first and make sure that you are feeling great, and don't be afraid to make those new traditions and to
Mhm.
say, I just can't do that this year.
Yep. One of my favorite Christmases was 2021. So 2020 was COVID, and so the family Christmas party couldn't happen. And then in 2021, I got the sniffles 2 days before Christmas, and the family was so excited because we've had this family Christmas party outside of the COVID for 98 straight years. And I took a test, and I had COVID in
Oh,
December 23rd of 2021. Lucky it was, the test was positive, but I didn't feel sick. Um, but I couldn't open the doors to the family holiday party. And, during COVID, there was all this worry that the tradition is broken, it'll never be the same. And everyone was so excited to come back together for 2021. And I had to cancel it 2 years in a row. I was most concerned that my kids would have a good Christmas, but I called my cousins, and they immediately invited them over to their house, and so my kids were, taken care of. And I lied in bed and watched Hallmark movies all day. And a friend brought a box of those Italian cookies, the flat ones, like
mm.
the whole thing for my Christmas dinner. And it was like one of the loveliest Christmas dinners ever. You know what? The parties came back, and we're doing the party, and we're going to make it to 100. And so yeah, so even when traditions are broken, they can be started again. But also caregivers, mothers, working daughters, there's this thing called hospital fantasies. Some of you have probably had them, right? Where you kind of hope for, you're just so overwhelmed and need a break. You hope for an illness that's like, you make up, like, I don't know what this illness would be, but like serious enough that you have to be in the hospital, but not so serious that anything's wrong, so that you can just get waited on and rest. So I think, we shouldn't have to be hospitalized or get COVID to get a break. If we feeling run down or whatever, and we decide to barricade ourselves in our room for a little while, everything out there is going to be okay.
Absolutely. Well, once again, Liz, we love our partnership with you, and I'm sure that what you have said this evening has resonated with so many people. So we wish you all a great holiday season, whatever that looks like for you. Take care of yourself as well. And remember, if you have any questions at all, you can contact us at the Northbridge Companies. And I know we'll be sending Liz's the recording of this, as well as the booklet that I spoke of earlier. So enjoy your evening, take care of yourself, and have a great rest of this year.
Thank you.